President Donald Trump issued an executive order on Tuesday designed to block the enforcement of state-level laws and regulations aimed at combating climate change and reducing fossil fuel consumption. The move, which marks a significant shift in federal policy, is part of Trump's broader efforts to bolster domestic energy production and roll back environmental regulations, aligning with his administration's pro-fossil fuel agenda. The executive order is a direct response to a wave of climate-related legislation passed by various states, particularly those governed by Democratic leaders. These laws, which target carbon emissions and promote the use of renewable energy, have drawn criticism from the Trump administration, which has long argued that such policies harm the U.S. economy and threaten the nation's energy independence. In the order, Trump directed the U.S. Attorney General to identify and assess state laws that address climate change, environmental, social, and governance, ESG initiatives, and carbon emissions. He called on the Attorney General to take necessary actions to block or challenge these policies if they interfere with the broader goals of U.S. energy dominance and economic security. Many states have enacted, or are in the process of enacting, burdensome and ideologically motivated climate change or energy policies that threaten American energy dominance and our economic and national security, the order stated. These policies are obstructing our ability to achieve affordable and reliable energy production, while undermining the energy sector and threatening jobs. The order comes just hours after Trump took separate steps to promote increased coal production and reduce regulatory barriers for the fossil fuel industry. Trump's administration has repeatedly targeted Obama-era environmental regulations, including efforts to curb carbon emissions from power plants and vehicle standards, arguing that they disproportionately harm American workers and businesses. While the order does not directly revoke any specific state law, it signals the administration's intention to challenge or preempt state-level policies through federal legal action. Trump specifically pointed to a number of state laws that have already drawn the ire of his administration. Among the most notable targets are the state-level climate laws passed in states like New York and Vermont, which impose financial penalties on fossil fuel companies for their role in contributing to climate change. These states have introduced taxes and fees aimed at raising funds for climate-related initiatives, while also holding fossil fuel companies accountable for their carbon footprints. In California, Trump's order takes aim at the state's cap-and-trade policy, which limits greenhouse gas emissions by setting a statewide limit and allowing companies to buy and sell allowances for emissions. Critics of the policy argue that it raises costs for businesses and consumers, while supporters claim it is crucial in reducing the state's carbon footprint and promoting cleaner energy. Furthermore, Trump's order targets lawsuits filed by states like Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which are seeking to hold energy companies accountable for their role in contributing to global warming. These lawsuits, which argue that energy companies should pay for the environmental damage caused by their products, have been a point of contention between state governments and the fossil fuel industry. In a statement, the White House argued that such state-level actions not only interfere with national energy policy, but also create a patchwork of regulations that make it more difficult for companies to operate across state lines. The administration asserts that federal laws and regulations should take precedence over individual state actions that may hinder the country's economic and energy interests. Environmental advocates and state lawmakers quickly denounced the executive order. They argue that it undermines local efforts to combat climate change and protect vulnerable communities from the impacts of rising global temperatures. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who has been involved in multiple legal battles against fossil fuel companies, called the order an attack on the health and safety of our communities. This order sends a dangerous message that the Trump administration values the interests of polluters over the well-being of the American people, James said in a statement. States have the right to protect their citizens from the devastating effects of climate change. Despite the pushback, Trump's order is expected to gain support among conservative lawmakers and industry groups who argue that state regulations are overly burdensome and can lead to higher energy costs for consumers. The fossil fuel industry, in particular, has applauded the Trump administration's efforts to block state climate policies and promote domestic energy production. Trump's order is expected to gain support among conservative lawmakers and industry groups who argue that state regulations are overly burdensome and can lead to higher energy costs for consumers. The fossil fuel industry, in particular, has applauded the Trump administration's efforts to block state climate policies and promote domestic energy production.